Dzień dobry, boker tov, good morning, bonjour, buongiorno. Unfortunately in other languages, I do not know how to say good morning in your own voices, in your own language. Guten Morgen, yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, justice is also a key concept in Lutheran thought. However, when Lutherans hear the word justice, we think of justification by faith and not by works. This was and is considered by many to be the core of the Lutheran credo. And behind this credo stands the insight that God's grace is a gift which is utterly unconditional. In his preface to his Latin writings, Luther describes how he came to this understanding. But I, blameless monk that I was, felt that before God I was a sinner with an extremely troubled conscience. I meditated day and night on those words until at last, by the mercy of God, I paid attention to their context. The justice of God is revealed in it as it is written, "The just person lives by faith." I began to understand that in this verse the justice of God is that by which the just person lives by a gift of God, that is by faith. I began to understand that this verse means that the justice of God is revealed through the gospel, but it is a passive justice. God justifies us by faith, as it is written, "The just person lives by faith." All at once, I felt that I'd been born again and entered into the paradise itself through the open gates. Immediately, I saw the whole scripture in a different light. That was Luther's discovery, and he developed his theology of justice and justification by reading Paul's letter to the Romans, and subsequently Lutherans read this Pauline letter with Luther's categories in mind, and the result, unfortunately, was a narrow perspective on the biblical understanding of justice, of the terms of tzedek and tzedakah in the Hebrew Bible, and of dikaiosune in the New Testament. The Jewish-Christian dialogue and also the ecumenical dialogue helped Lutherans to develop a wider and helpful perspective of what justice is. Biblical perspective of justice, tzedek and tzedakah. The root of the Hebrew word of justice appears 524 times in the Bible, thus making it an important term. We find it much more often in the Psalms and in the prophets than in the Torah. Tzedek is an attribute and a form of behavior. It is equally described to God and human beings. Most often in Christian translations, the word is translated as just or justice, a translation that can easily mislead. Popular contemporary conceptions of justice stress the idea that justice entails a form of equal treatment. This is not the focus of the biblical understanding. The focus of the term tzedek is on the relationship to the community and its overall well-being. Furthermore, tzedek is part of the relationship between God and Israel. God's tzedek is mirrored in his giving the Torah to Israel, and Israel's tzedek becomes apparent in fulfilling God's will, that is also the commandments of the Torah. If there is strife and conflict, according to the biblical perspective, there is no tzedek. It needs to be reestablished. Tzedek is also the consequence of human behavior. In the book of the prophet Isaiah, God addresses his people, "Listen to me, you who pursue Tzedek, you who seek the Lord. Truly, God has comforted Zion, comforted all her ruins. Hearken to me, you who care for Tzedek, O people who have my Torah in your heart." It is interesting to note that the different translations that were chosen, Buber and Rosenzweig translate the term Tzedek as Wahrhaftigkeit, veracity. Zunz translates dem Rechte, the law, the first time, and justice, Gerechtigkeit, the second time. The American translation of the Jewish Publication Society translates the first occurrence as justice and the second as the right. The American Revised Standard Version, a Christian translation, rather freely chooses the terms deliverance and righteousness. A contemporary Christian translation from Germany uses Gerechtigkeit, justice twice. When I was studying this, it became apparent that the way the word is translated also mirrors the theological background the translators came from. And I think seeing the different translations is a real compelling reason to study Hebrew. However, all the translations agree on how to translate the term in Deuteronomy 16, verse 18-19, "Justice, justice you shall pursue, that you may thrive and occupy the land that the Lord your God is giving you," the title of our lectures. These words are spoken by Moses on Mount Nebo. They are his testament to the Israelite people who will cross the river Jordan and move into the promised land, whereas Moses knows he'll die and he'll not be able to lead the people. His admonition to pursue justice is part of the literary context in which he instructs the Israelites to establish legal procedures. "You shall appoint magistrates and officials for your tribes. You shall not judge unfairly." Justice needs law, needs a functioning juridical system. A juridical system will most often not suffice to create justice, yet it's a necessary precondition. And for all we know, if law is abrogated, the foundation of a society is undermined. And a drastic example of this is a Nazi inversion of law into injustice. Among the 7 Noahide laws which a non-Jew has to fulfill to be part of Olam Haba, the coming world, there are 6 negative laws and 1 positive. The positive law demands establishing courts of law. For a long time, I wondered why this commandment was chosen rather than any other biblical prescription. Given the close relationship the Bible posits between justice and law, I recognize that the establishment of courts, or in modern terms, a juridical system, as a necessary precondition for justice. Again and again, in the Bible, prophetic criticism is directed against the abuse of law and the disturbance of tzedakah. Thus, Amos addresses the people, "Ah, you who turn law, mishpat, into wormwood and hurl justice, tzedakah, to the ground." Amos 5:7.